Well, here we are, episode number 49 of the Oklahoma Weather Show. We do this show every noon on KOCO.com as well as YouTube. That is every noon on Wednesdays. Every now and then we might throw in a Tuesday show there, a nice little bonus show throughout the week. We've been doing this show for a little over a year now. We started back last January, so this is the 49th show that we have done. Every single week it's a different topic, and I'm a little nervous about today because I think today might be the biggest guest we have ever had on the show. I don't know if you can see my hands are kind of shaking a little bit here. You probably recognize her from Good Morning America, meteorologist Ginger Z. Ginger, good to have you on. How are things in New York City?
Oh, everything's great here. Of course, slightly colder than everybody else in there, but really well. And you know what? You shouldn't be shaking at all. I should be the one shaking. You guys are the experts in Oklahoma. It's one of my favorite places to forecast for, but a spot that I never got to do locally. So this is exciting for me.
Well, you're the only one with a bottle of wine behind us, so maybe we can all toast to that here in just a moment.
Oh, yeah, that's from last night. Celebrate.
It's been opened. It's open. I don't have a bottle of wine. I just have my little NutriBullet juice right here.
Yeah, it's so funny. I realize now I have my bar behind me. That's not probably what I should be showing. But if you notice, there's a map of Manhattan there. So it's like the geography is all part of it.
I like that. That's what every meteorologist needs. They need a glass, a bottle of wine, and a map that can display your city. Yeah, no kidding. Shelby actually in charge of bringing on today's show. Before we even kind of talk a little bit about some of these other things that we have going on here, Shelby, how do you and Ginger know each other?
Well, a few years ago I was meeting James Spann, and he started telling me all about Ginger. So we just kept talking about Ginger, and finally I asked him if I could meet her, and he helped me get set up to talk to Ginger, and I got to go up to Good Morning America just about a year ago, right before Damon actually went and filled in at Good Morning America, and got to spend a few days up there with Ginger, getting to know her.
Yeah, I got to go to GMA. It was a quick trip. I didn't get to see Ginger. It was a fly out Friday, come back Sunday, and actually, Ginger, I don't even know if I ever told you this, but I almost didn't make it up. I was actually getting ready to board my flight out of Oklahoma City, and I got denied boarding because they had overbooked the flight, and I said, no, you have no idea. I have to get to New York City. I cannot miss this flight. And we had a big ice storm coming in, and they said, well, we might be able to get you out Saturday at midday. And I'm like, that's not good enough. And eventually someone gave up their seat, and off I went. So, well, speaking of ice and winter, and I know you were talking a lot about how it's been pretty cold up in New York City, but actually here in Oklahoma it's been anything but. 23 out of the last 27 days we have seen above normal temperatures. The only 4 days during that stretch that have actually been feeling like winter actually came last week. But I want to show a couple pictures real quick because there are now signs of spring popping up in Oklahoma, and this is actually really cool. I grabbed this image from Brad Souter, and actually he was walking through his neighborhood, and I've noticed it a lot around my neighborhood as well, and that is that the daffodils are now getting ready to pop up. So daffodil season is here, Brad. You took this, right?
Yeah, I'm sure we're making Ginger a little jealous here with things turning green because, of course, in the Northeast, it's how much snow is on the ground outside your house there, Ginger, in New York?
Oh, very little here. I mean, we still have just some ugly piles in New York City. It's nothing like last year. Last year we got slammed with snow here. But I say slammed. I grew up in a place in West Michigan where we get 120 inches average a year. So it's kind of strange when people here get excited by, a foot or two. But you go into Boston, and that's where we've focused all of our efforts this season so far, where they're almost 80 inches. They had ocean effect this morning, another clipper that'll come through and try to become a coastal low Thursday night into Friday. And that is stealing all the headlines. It's so specific to Boston, too, because if you just go west of Worcester, say, that's when the totals start to fall off. And this is, of course, all in a very short amount of time. It's been less than a month. A month ago, I was talking about how much of New England was in a snow drought and how this year they were so far below average. And now they have gone 2-3 times their annual average and more.
Hey, Ginger, I don't know. Can you guys see that? I can produce for you here. I've got the, can you see your snowfall graphic?
No, I
Yes.
can't.
Oh.
I'm seeing the green. You guys are still taunting me with those daffodils.
Here, let me see. Let me see if I can click this over. But
Oh, I see it
couple-
small on the bottom. I see it there. Okay.
okay, yeah. Let me do see if I can do a screen share again. But all right. So there's so there's more snow forecast for the Northeast. Got a couple things. I've been trolling your, or I guess not trolling, but stalking your Twitter account here. So you had this. You know, if it's not on Ginger Z's Twitter account, it's not real weather. Because
Yeah.
if,
Is that right?
if you're not talking about it, doesn't
The last thing I heard was something about jazz drumming. So.
Well, you know, it's been quiet the last couple of days, considering all this. This was out of Boston, obviously, or Quincy, WCVB there. The plow's obviously having a big problem, even just scraping the roads. And while this is going on, you recently also got out of town and flew over a volcano. So tell us about this. You were in Iceland, right? You were doing a story on drones, and this was pretty cool. I think this was last week, right? What happened?
Hey, Brad.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah,
Did we lose Ginger?
I guess so. I'm just, I thought I'd been the one that got kicked off. All right.
We'll get her back in. Hey, you know, another actually picture of signs of spring coming into Oklahoma I wanted to show, and actually this is not even Oklahoma, but this is Oklahoma enough. And that is bluebonnets. I'm a big fan of the Texas bluebonnet. This was actually taken in January 29th down in Llano, or Llano, depending on who you talk to down there.
Say it 9 different ways. Eventually say it right.
Yeah, right. So I'm thinking there's a wine Llano, but bluebonnet season's now coming in. And actually, we'll begin to see these flowers move up to the north. They'll start blooming in North Texas, and then they'll be here in Oklahoma by, I'd say, about another month or so from now. So signs of spring are now coming into the southern plains, and all you need to do is just look at Mother Nature. Mother Nature will actually show you that, yeah, spring's right around the corner, no matter what the groundhog said, right? All right, Brad, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I heard a little feedback there too. Sometimes these things are a little fun because I don't know if everybody watching can tell, but of course we are in our homes. I guess Jonathan's the only one in a studio type of environment now, and Ginger obviously is in her New York apartment. She was saying a minute ago, we got to meet her husband before we started the show, and she said how weird that the two of them are actually working together. So once we get her back, I think it'll be interesting to ask her about that. The traveling that she has to do.
Oh, she travels a whole lot. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable just how much on the road they have to do. But yeah, absolutely.
You know, you always dream of being at the top of your game, and you know, with Ginger Z, you really can't get any higher up in this industry than where she is. But then you get there, and all you're doing is, well, not all, but you're working 100 hours a week, and you know, something has to you have to make some sacrifices on some ends, and sometimes it's the rest of your life that has to be put on hold.
Well, you know, when you talk to people up there, I mean, they are they work a lot, and they are always working because if you think about it, news, it's early in the morning, and then it's in the afternoon with World News Tonight and David Muir. So there's always a lot of commitment that has to be put into this business. You know,
as you dial her back in, we can talk about something I think is interesting. You know, we're showing those pictures of the Oklahoma starting to green up a little bit. I know Jeremy Carter sent out a picture just a couple days ago of the buds on some of the trees actually budding out. Seems early. It all is early. We've been very warm the last 3 weeks, way above average. In contrast, it's the same reason why the Northeast is getting pounded with feet of snow. Boston, a plaguing pattern of 6 feet of snow in 3 weeks, while we've had the same 3 weeks of record warmth. Mm-hmm. That's a long time to have a stalled out pattern like that. it's inevitable that it's going to break down. And Damon, I know you've been looking at it along with me, and Shelby and Jonathan. That pattern looks to break down early to mid next week.
Yeah, well, and that's it breaks down for us, but not for them. They stay cold. And
You're right. Actually, it just gets much colder everywhere.
Yeah. You think about it, though, just like we can get stuck in a prolonged stretch of hot weather in the summertime where we have 100-degree heat, same thing can happen during the wintertime where we can get stuck in a prolonged pattern of what we would call warmth. And, of course, when you're breaking record highs in the wintertime, it actually doesn't feel all that bad. It's those record highs in July that we don't like to talk about. Ginger! Glad to have you back.
I'm back.
You're back. We have you back here, so... New York City. I know you all have a lot of internet usage, so we all got to share it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And actually, Ginger, we were just talking about on this show how signs of spring popping up across the southern plains. Things are beginning to green up. When do things begin to green up in New York?
It's not quite as soon, but it's much sooner than I grew up. Like I said, I've been in the Great Lakes for a majority of my career and where I studied. So when I got here, you see Central Park starting to perk up. I think it's like very early April. Depends, though, of course, because each year being very different. Mid-April, though, you really start to see it. And then that late April, once those blooms, like right along Hudson River, there are just the most beautiful blooms that come out. That's when I know it's set.
That's a good time of the year. That's my favorite time of the year. I love springtime. Get out of this winter brown and get some green in here. Brad, what else did you have?
Yeah, Ginger, while you were gone, we were just kind of sharing through your Twitter account that I was on earlier because I was mentioning that you share everything that is weather. And so the snow in Boston, they have nowhere else to put it. You are forecasting more snow. And by the way, kudos to you guys. Few weeks ago when the kind of the first blizzard that came in, you and Rob, the ABC weather team, forecasting the snow in New York City, and everybody else, the weather service, and then there's a lot of pressure from producers of the weather service to go with a higher amount of snow, but you guys kept it back in New York City and had one of the best forecasts out of any media outlet.
Thank you. Yeah, it was one of those storms where it was Sunday and the storm was mostly on Monday night, Tuesday. I think that was the timing. Or it was Tuesday. And I kept thinking, why 2 days in advance would someone forecast so big? It was really, really scary. I actually thought it was a joke at first. I thought it was a joke forecast. That's how big 36 inches to me. I think it would be really crazy. So I kept telling my team, I've always been conservative. I'm always on the low end because I think weather is so much about psychology and how people perceive it, and I think that's how we need to forecast so much so people know what a foot of snow is. But if you get 8 or 16 inches, that's also going to be different. You have to really play on what people think. So I often will ask folks around me, do you know the difference between a foot or a foot and a half? My makeup artist, I ask her, she's like the best gauge ever because she really doesn't know anything about weather, but she lives in Long Island and she has to drive into Manhattan, and so I know what will affect her too, and I know what will affect the city. So that's where we said, all of us, we had this huge group text message with 6 of us, and we all were interjecting all of our thoughts on the computer models. And of course there was at least one, and at times 2, that were going with the 24 to 36 type looking forecast. I really have a hard time doing that. I've covered the 2010 storm, one of the bigger ones here. I was working for MSNBC at the time, and anytime you get over 2 feet of snow, that's really hard to do in New York City. We often end up right on the line, which is what happened that day, and it's tough to get that much cold air, and the ocean moderates everything big time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, what sort of, I know you've been in a number of different TV markets over your career, and you're now at the top of the game where the pressure probably only mounts up even more. What sort of pressures do you get from producers, from managing editors saying, hey, look, weather service is going 3 feet. What is with your 1 foot, foot and a half total?
Yeah, I'm really lucky because over the last couple of years, I think we've changed the way that ABC does weather. We do it a lot, and people will give us a hard time about that, but we will always do it as accurately as possible. So that's what I always start with first, is whatever comes out of my mouth is going to be right. It's going to be accurate. I can control that. As far as the topic bars and the introductions to us, the intros, the tags, all the things that the anchors will be saying, I've just learned, and I learned this early in my career, it's best to just go direct to the source. So yes, I'll talk to the producers, yes, I'll talk to the other people, but at the end of the day, it's the person who writes that topic bar that I need to make friends with and say, hey, let me tell you why I'm credible and why we should keep it at this. Mm-hmm. Now, at the same time, I do understand there were people that got 3 feet of snow. So to make a topic bar say at the very bottom of the screen, 3 feet, 3 feet of snow, as long as they say up to, I'm okay with that. So that's the thing. You have to become flexible as long as it's going to be right somewhere. And my words to everybody is, please just realize that the headline isn't necessarily for you. That's when you have to really listen to your local forecasters and listen to them specifically, because they know best. So that's with all of you. If we do a headline in central Oklahoma or for the plains, because we do it more regionally, then I would always push to your expertise, because that's where, you know, we can't cover every single square county, every county in the United States, and nor should we. So I think that's where the, you know, a bunch of you and our subs, we all get combined as the best team. So hopefully we can keep doing that. But there's a lot. I will not lie to you. It is a fight almost every single morning. We have a battle. And it's just, but it's gotten better. And I think it's really gotten better where my team is now not just me. It's not just me going to them. I've got Melissa, Samantha, Max, a couple of guys named Dan, and they all work together. We all kind of make sure we have our idea together first, then we go to the company, and then we go to the public.
You get to do some pretty awesome things. Just last week, wasn't it? You were in Iceland, right?
Yeah.
Over some volcanoes. What? Nice little escape from covering 3 feet of snow in Boston.
Yeah, go stand on a glacier.
What was that like?
Yeah, you know what? I did a last report with David Muir on World News, and then I got in an airplane, flew to Reykjavik, Iceland, and it was delayed, and so I got there about an hour late, took a taxi about an hour, and then a 2-hour helicopter ride, and I was on television again for Good Morning America. So it was like I had skipped a day, and all of a sudden there was a volcano under me, and we're flying over it, and it was very surreal, but extremely cool. I know a lot of people often think that meteorologists are geologists or seismologists automatically. Obviously we're not, but I am also very fascinated with that part of science. So it was great to have a geophysicist right with me, a man that grew up there, and I mean the entire helicopter ride over, 2 hours, he gave me a full PowerPoint presentation of the dynamics of the underground of Iceland.
But you just made all of us quite jealous. All of a sudden.
And you know what? There are some long days and there's some crazy stuff that happens when you get to this level. I'll never call it glamorous because at the end of the day it's still weather and it's still news. But to be able to go drop into Iceland with a helicopter, and then we had to hurry out because there was a blizzard. And then all of a sudden you look back, and even this week I'm looking back like, was I just in Iceland last week? That's wild. Did I fly to Nepal last year? Yeah, I did. There's some big benefits.
One of these days, we all want to see your passport and how many stamps you have on it. Yeah. That is for sure. That is for sure. Shelby, don't want to delay you any longer because I know you're responsible for bringing Ginger on here today. So take it away.
Hey, Ginger, we're so excited to have you. Excited today not just because you're a female and you're breaking ground for us, but because you're a degreed meteorologist. And we take that in pride here in Oklahoma and at our station, and we're just so thankful to have you in the national media, kind of keeping control of things for us and bringing some reliability to that. What's it been like? I know you've been the chief meteorologist at ABC for about a year now. What has that year been like for you?
It's been a whole ride, a roller coaster, of course, just like I was saying. I mean, from the travel to all of the other things that come along with this position. But I'd say most meaningful is just what you're talking about, being able to slightly, even just a little bit, change the landscape of or the stereotype of what weather in general means at a network level. And we're at this point where people are super interested. They love it. And it's because of you guys. It's because the accuracy at a local level has gotten so much better. They trust you. They trust you more than they ever have. And so that makes everyone more interested because they say, well, that one happened just as they said it would. Let's see what happens the next time. And weather's inherently interesting. Everybody's going to look up and go, whoa, that's crazy, whether they're scared of it or some other way. So to be able to give some credibility to that, not that there haven't been others before, but certainly to start changing the landscape of having the degree, having a seal, all of those things that I think are so important going forward. I'd say the most surprising thing still to this day is that people don't get it. That we get so wrapped up in our minds, and the meteorology community is so small that I think we forget what matters most to other people. Like I lose myself in it. So I kind of will do a test. I'll say, well, would my husband care about that? Would Lisa, my makeup artist, care about that? And then how can I mesh that with also wanting to keep this responsibility of being scientific, degreed, accurate, all of those things.
Right. Yeah. And so I know that you do a lot of things. You talked about how ABC is doing a lot of weather, and you do Good Morning America, and then you might be on World News Tonight. What is that day like for you? Do you work like all day?
Yeah. This week I have. Yeah, most weeks, the last year before we hired Rob, I was doing every show every day. So I'm lucky that David Muir is a big fan of weather and of mine, and so he has had me on his program as much as humanly possible. I mean, they told me coming into this job, you will never work harder in your life, and they were not joking. So they're long days, but in the middle, I mean, this week, for example, I've been working on a weather special that will air actually in your market too. I'm not sure exact time and stuff, but
3:30 on Sunday.
3:30 on Sunday.
I'm one of your pools tomorrow, talking to you and Rob. So
good.
Yeah, we'll talk again tomorrow.
Good. Okay. Well, that's the type of thing that I want to keep doing. Is about a year ago when I took over on the weekdays, I said I really would like to, instead of show a line for storm surge along a coast, I feel like my makeup artist Lisa has no idea what that line means. Instead of doing that, I'd like to show her in a virtual world what 5 to 10 feet of water would look like in her house. And that's the story that we're going to tell in that weather special. And that's something that we've been working on for the last 4 months or so. I wrote 5 different stories for it, produced it. My other producer that I work with, Samantha, her and I have been working on getting just the right shots. And you guys would laugh, and you probably are all the same as me. But when an editor sits down and they don't know tornadoes, I know tornadoes like they're my children or something. So he had put a bunch of shots together, and I said, oh, nope, that's not Moore, that's El Reno. And then he said, really? And I said, oh, and that's Woodward, and that's this. He was like, wow, you know your tornadoes. And that's the type of responsibility that I sit in edit bay and do. So during the day, it's not always that I get to run out and do other things. There's days where I get to take a nap, which is nice, but sleeps for later.
Yeah, you can sleep later. And by the way, I think many Oklahomans are pretty impressed that Woodward, Moore, El Reno, because sometimes it seems that we only get talked about when the big weather events are happening, and then after the big weather events are long gone and the big satellite trucks have moved out, we kind of the big spotlight kind of goes away. So good to hear, that you still have that mentality that you can still remember those big weather stories from a few years ago.
I could separate Shawnee, that same tornado, because that was one of them he had in the wrong place, and I was like, nope, can't use that. That was the day before more.
That's good.
Yeah, and especially Oklahoma, I had some extra time spent there, a lot of time spent in Norman, and I've storm chased a lot from college on, so I have a special place in my heart. But I'm glad that you brought up that network, kind of, I struggle with this on a daily basis. I have 30 seconds to tell the weather, and if you don't see me for the next 2 hours, that's all you've seen. So people may feel like we're only talking about Washington, D.C., or we're only talking about Chicago. And of course we do the bigger cities first, because population, if they're impacted by weather, needs to know about that. The best way is for you guys and anybody that watches to send pictures, to send video, to send information, because even though we've got 6, 7 meteorologists on our team, we've got 2 working at a time, it's really tough to get it all. It is a big, beautiful nation we live in, and I'd love to showcase more of your state. And
you do a great job too, Ginger. Of and I'm not just saying this because you're on our show, and you literally reach out to each station every day, to the local Mets. What do you have? What's going on in your market? What can we showcase? And I've worked a little bit with other network stations in different markets, and I don't think there's been any like you that has done that. So I think that's a big deal, because so many times, what are we overlooking? What is not getting enough attention? And I think you do a great job of weeding through that.
oh, thank you. And it's so funny you say that, because I came into this job having done local for 10 years, and it would be like someone coming to one of you and saying, well, we have a weather producer for you. And I was like, what? I don't need a weather producer. I've done my own graphics forever. I get my information. I do my own forecasting, not realizing it's the whole nation. And I definitely have areas where I'm not as strong. And so what's nice is we kind of round each other out. There are people who are experts on nor'easters. There are tropical experts. I really know severe weather and lake effect snow better than I do the others. The Pacific Northwest now Rob's rounding out, because a lot of us didn't have much experience there, and that's not a place that most people study too much. So it's exciting to see. And I would add 10 meteorologists to the team right now, whereas 3 years ago I thought I wanted to do it alone. So that's why I reach out constantly, because I need all of your help.
Shelby's there.
Awesome. Yeah, we're here if you need us. Hey, so just kind of on the personal level, what got you interested in weather?
I loved storms coming over Lake Michigan. So we would see them. It's just like the plains. You can see forever. It's once you get into Michigan, it's a little more rolling hills, and you don't get to see the bottoms of a thunderstorm. But if you're on Lake Michigan, it is the most serene start to the thunderstorm. And I saw a water spout when I was very young. I saw multiple storms come through, and then we had a couple derechos that were pretty impactful for my town specifically. So all of those combined, the typical story.
Yes. See the weather and then you have to do it. Something I don't know if a lot of people know that I want to make sure that they know if they're listening is you help out a lot of young meteorologists. I got to spend just a couple of days with you, and what you gave me in those couple of days helped me tremendously. Would you mind talking a little bit about when you were teaching and how you have kept in touch with some of those meteorologists?
Of course, that's one of my favorite things to do, but I always make you guys sign that contract that says you won't take my job, right?
Yes, of course.
No, so I started teaching at my alma mater, because when I went to school at Valparaiso, there wasn't any crossover. So all meteorology was just meteorology, and television really wasn't something that anybody went into. I believe in my class I was one of 2 out of 30 that ended up going into TV. The rest of everyone else went to grad school, or they went on to work in different private sector, tons of different places in meteorology. When I went to work in Chicago, and the whole time I kept thinking, gosh, I wish someone would have helped me, because this business, like many businesses, there's so many hidden surprises. It's like, what is a contract? I didn't know what a contract was. I didn't know what I was supposed to get in a contract. Nobody tells you those things. So when I went back to work in Chicago, I saw that my alma mater was starting to do a crossover class, and I said, I want to teach that. I want to give those students what I didn't have so far. And now I'm helping many of them. I mean, from that point, they walked out of my class with a great resume tape, which is something I didn't have. I had a really poor resume tape, and that's why I didn't get a job, in part for 9 months, I think. And then just some experiences, because I think the best teacher is someone who has done exactly what you're about to do. So it makes me feel good, because it's every time somebody gets a job, it's like, I got a job. Because selfishly, I'm like, ooh, I helped put that together. But then also I'm watching them grow into who I know they can be. And after 3.5 years of teaching, so that was however many semesters, that's 7 semesters of seeing different groups of students, I got a pretty good feel for who was who and who could do what, and then I kind of tailor how I help them. So I don't think I'm an expert by any means, but I enjoy it, and I have kind of a little formula that I think works for most people.
The Ginger Z guarantee.
Yes, you will get a job with this.
I got my first job 6 weeks after putting that formula together.
Well, It doesn't hurt.
It does.
I'm very curious to know about this formula now. I think you're going to have to share it.
Yeah, it's easy. It's simple, and I don't think I'm the first person that came up with it, but I simplified it. So, do you want to know it, or is that interesting to people? I don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got a lot of kids at OU watching.
Okay, so if you're, this is going to sound very superficial, but that's what TV ends up being on its surface, right? So you have to put the shot where you look the absolute best on your resume reel first. I don't care what you say, and I just call it for short hot. I know that sounds terrible, but you have to look like the best you. And then second, you need to back it up with, oh, and I can talk. So the second one has to showcase some sort of intelligence. These are, again, all 5 to 15-second clips, right? And so it's hot, smart. This sounds so bad. Funny. Now we want to see some personality. Show me that you don't just, you have more to you. And so it can be quirky, funny, whatever makes you you. Then you have to go outside of wherever we've seen you. If you've been outside the whole time, you need to come inside. If you've been inside a studio, you need to go outside so that you can also showcase, oh, I can talk outside of this place too. And then finally, interaction. So something where you're interacting with another person, an anchor, a co-anchor, interview, whatever it is. So that should be about 50 seconds long. And if you have done hot, smart, funny, outside interaction, I think you get a job. It's pretty simple. I think people make it way too complicated, and they end up they think, oh, this person really wants to see me doing all severe weather. And they do. But you know when they want to see it? They want to see it in that next 30-second clip that's after the first 50 seconds. They want to get to know you. And this business, even though it is a meteorology business, it's first a television business. And so you need to grab their attention. And that's how you're going to do it, by showcasing a whole bunch of you.
Agent Ginger Z here with her free of charge
Yeah. Yeah, right. My students are always saying, they would always say, it's so, but that just like you said, Shelby, it's like you write it, they wrote it down, they went and did it, and then they got a job. And I'm like, I don't know if that's just a guarantee, but it certainly seems to work. So
I like it. I like it. I'm gonna I have a couple of interns this semester. I'm gonna have them do that. Jonathan, I know we haven't really had a whole lot of time to talk to you yet. Anything you want to add before we call this a day?
No, I just have been enjoying the conversation. I guess I do have one question for Ginger. Do you ever get the butterflies or get the, what am I doing right now? I think, I don't get it anymore. When I was young in this market, I maybe got it a little bit like, oh, I'm cutting in on prime time for a severe thunderstorm warning. All these people are going to get mad because I'm covering up whatever. I don't really get that anymore. I just do my job. But do you ever get the butterflies anymore, or is it just work and it's just very relaxed? Do you have that feeling anymore?
Yeah, every time I start something new, so it's always whatever's new. But like daily right now, no. There's times I have to remind myself I'm on television, which is weird.
I'll never forget when I was on GMA for just a short while, and they were leading in, they were doing the toss to me, and I just had this, butterflies galore.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, I'm past the point of no return now, so it's all or nothing, here we go. And and I kind of need that, because if you don't get that at least every now and then maybe you get stuck in a pattern. And so It's always good to kind of break that mold, and once you do something new, you get those butterflies back. So.
Oh, it's back. I did it in Chicago for 5 years. I was in a studio, and I kept saying, something feels wrong, and it was because I hadn't broken that up. And so I ended up joining Discovery Channel and Storm Chasers, and then I've done a couple of things where it doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave where you are either. There's always something else to grow into. Maybe it's writing, or, we all have skills maybe we don't even know. Today, I'll tell you I had it. I had a jazz musician. We're doing a special for the Oscars about whiplash, and I was learning how to play jazz drums. I've never drummed in my life. So I'm guessing I'm going to have butterflies for a while doing that.
I get them after a consultant comes over and gives you a couple of new things, and then all of a sudden you're going into your show, you're like, all right, how many of these new ideas that the consultant just gave me do I need to do right now? And I get them a lot then too. Anyone else want to add anything before we call it a day? been a fun show. It's gone by fast.
Yeah.
No one? No one? No one?
I do. I want you to watch the show Sunday.
Okay, Ginger. Anything else you want to plug?
No, I think you're going to see some exciting things coming out of our weather team in the next few months. Those, again, the 3D graphics are going to become more prevalent. We're going to start showcasing some things on Apple TV and growing into a space. My other dream, and I hope this happens soon, is when you Google how does a tornado form, I feel like right now there's not the greatest answer, and certainly not the greatest answer with someone credible telling you necessarily. So I'm hoping that that can be answered very soon.
We're excited. We are excited. Well, it's been a good show, and Ginger.